And we are live with episode 6 of Behind the Minds with our special guest of the evening, Ace Rocks Tech.
How y'all
Ace, how are
doing?
you?
I am, as I tell people, I am fair to partly cloudy, but uh-oh.
What happened?
No, it's coming through now, I think.
I hear you now. That was weird.
Oh.
It cut out at my end. We were fine for the last 10 minutes while we were talking, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah. I think it's starting to show up.
well, that's fine.
Okay.
Barry says he can hear us, so that's good. Let's
Well,
keep
there you
going.
go. Hey, if Barry can hear us, that means that everybody else can hear us. So there you go.
Yeah. I hate that when that happens, and I was like, I know there's weather coming my way, so I'm hoping that none of that causes
Uh
some fun
yeah,
stuff.
because
It
we've
should be
been
fine.
talking for a good 10 minutes and nothing was going on.
So we were talking about that you had ordered or are doing a trade in on your 6 Pro, looking at the 7, and just kind
Right.
of so um before I guess we can go into that. I'll reverse order things for this week just because it's fun.
Sure.
Um so are there certain things that you do you use the telephoto lens on on your 6 Pro a lot and certain things like that that you're gonna kind of know?
Not really. The big pro features, I mean I used them when I first got them. The telephoto lens and uh, what was there was like 6 to 8 gigs of RAM difference, I think. I'm not a heavy I don't play a lot of games or anything on my phone, so it's nothing that I would notice. Although through the years, between, the Pixel and, iPhones, I'm always getting the Pro, the Pro, the Pro, the Pro. And I thought to myself, you know, what's the regular one, going to be like? Like because it's 6.3, 6.4 inches compared to the 6.7, I think. Um, Although I did have the 13 Pro
I
iPhone,
mean
which had the
that
6.1.
that's the 6
Yeah.
and that's the
But
14
yeah,
Pro Max, so that's the comparison. They're almost the same size.
yeah, I mean I've got my
So,
the Pixel 6 Pro and my 14, Pro Max, and they're the same size. Well, the Pixel 6 Pro is a little bit bigger, although I gotta say that this thing is like 10 times lighter
oh
than
yeah.
the iPhone. So I'm just curious you know, because the price point for the Pixel 7 and even the Pixel 6 when it first came out, I mean, $600 for, flagship specs, Tensor second generation chip, 90 hertz. I mean, the iPhone 14s still have 60. Of course, they do their Apple magic and, make it look, a little bit better, but it's still 60 hertz for what do they sell theirs for? $800 for the base. So yeah, I'm curious. I'm very curious to see what $600 gets me.
Yeah, you have cuz the 7 is it undercuts by a couple $100 the iPhone 14, and then the Pro is just $100 more. And that's kind of crazy to
Right.
think it's undercuts the 14 Pro. So, um, what did you think about kind of the layout of today's event, though? Um, I was a little thrown off. It was one of those this
They
is my
seemed
statement.
really nervous.
I felt like if you were to envision what the Google Assistant voices would look like if they were giving a presentation. That's kind of what you would get.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be honest, the presenters, all of them, even the head honcho guy, I can't remember his name, but they all seemed very nervous. Like I don't know if they didn't prep right or I don't know, just the flow of their speech, it was they just seemed nervous to be on stage. So it was I mean, I did like how personal it felt. It was a small stage, and they didn't have that many people there, and it felt up close and personal. But yeah, they seemed kind of nervous, and a lot of a lot of shade was thrown to Apple throughout the presentation. So when they were talking about the oh, what were they? How they came up with crash detection, and they first did this, and then the whole the texting uh, RC I can't
RCS,
remember. Yeah,
RCS, yeah.
RCS, yeah, they really threw shade on that one. But, which is fine. I get Samsung does it with Apple and Google. I don't recall them throwing as much shade as like a Samsung, but it was like they were really throwing some serious shade to Apple this time around. But it is what it is. So Apple doesn't. Apple's not one to really throw shade unless they're showing their little bar graph about how much better something is over a general PC or this that and the other. Um, but when you're $1 trillion company, you don't really have to do that. You don't have to you know throw shade to another company, but and nothing wrong with it, to a certain degree. They're just they want to get those Apple shares, so you know
I I was a little thrown off because, Google has their I/O, and then where they kind of touched on some stuff, right? They touched on the watch, they touched on tablet, they touched on all this stuff, and they talk about some of it coming later this year and some of it coming next year.
right.
And then they have this event, and Apple has like the developers conference, and then they have their iPhone event. I felt like Google's was a little bit too I/O still. To me, it felt a
Yeah,
little too developer focused still, but it was exciting after like the first 15 20 minutes, and then they were actually talking about hardware and talking about like these features that people are going to benefit from. And I'll just be curious to see, like, because they didn't one thing they didn't really touch on much was, and I checked on their website, is that the Pixel Watch, it works with more than just the Pixel. So, but they didn't really focus on that much, and they didn't discuss like are certain features Pixel specific, or do you have can you just load like the Fitbit app and the Google Wear app and have the same experience? Because we all know, obviously, Apple doesn't isn't going to work with anything but an iPhone, but like my Samsung watch, which I'm dual wielding, um,
hmm,
will work on a Pixel, but I lose some of the Samsung stuff. A lot of the like some of the Samsung health based features where they had to get approval. You only get the features that are linked that work kind of with Google Health and Google Fit and some of the
right.
stuff. So I'd be curious to know if it's the same the other way around. And how do you feel about the whole tablet thing? I was a little thrown off because I was like, so you're basically saying that it should mostly be used at home. I was really confused because they're like talking about using it on the couch and then docking with the speaker. And is the speaker
Right.
going to be useful if it doesn't have the tablet docked on it? Are you going to be able to use it like a regular, like a Google, like a Nest Mini, or are you going
Right.
to be able to Bluetooth to it? Like, these are all the things I guess we don't know until it launches, but I'm hoping that some people said that and that they'll kind of take
Right.
that as insight, as to
Yeah,
developing
did they
that
even
because
say what the screen size was on the tablet? I mean, they talked about the coding and on it and everything like that, and how every other tablet in the world just ends up in a drawer somewhere. But did they ever say what the size of the actual
It
tablet was?
it's hard to tell because it could be
Yeah,
like a 10 or 11-inch size, but
but
also
it also
the
could be like a
bezels, the
12 or is
bezels, the
yeah.
bezels on it didn't really make it clear because it seemed huge,
Yeah.
and we didn't get enough of an angle from the front. We got a little bit of a glimpse, so it's hard to tell because, like for example, um, you know, a well, 12.9-inch iPad Pro,
Hmm. Right.
and then you have this is just the regular Tab S8, so it's whatever size that is.
Right. And it's
But
like I've
because we
got
have two different aspect ratios here, so
like the this is the Pro 11 inch, so you don't know, just I don't know. It's just kind of weird that they didn't. It's like they told you about it, but they didn't tell you anything about it.
I guess that was kind of our little bit of a because we couldn't do a little bit of a pixel discussion, right away. We couldn't just avoid that and ignore that, knowing that that went on today. But that's not really what
Right.
this is about. So my first question to you, I guess, would be as we kind of get to know you a little bit, um, is what do you do for your your boring job? No, your day to day
Oh,
sort of thing.
oh my, yeah, my day. Well, my 9 to 5. I'm a workforce analyst for a car rental company. And basically what that is I um, work in a call center, and watch the flow of um, and we have three different outsourcers that help handle volume, and I watch all of them, and to make sure the calls are going to the right place, and then forecasting and scheduling, analytics numbers, blah 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 type thing. So I've been doing that for about 20, not just with this car company, but I used to do it with a credit card company as well. But I've been workforce analyst for, I don't know, over 20 years now.
Yeah, my dad did. He was an analyst for the state, and before that, he kind of did. He worked in insurance, doing similar thing. So
Yeah.
I think it's a fascinating. So let's go back to like early days of Ace in tech. What's
Oh,
like your earliest memory of like tech and being like, this is cool, this blows my mind?
the Atari 2600. Man, I that was like as a kid, this was for all you youngsters out there, this was before, you could pause a game, before you could save a game. There was none of that. It was uh grinding at its finest. I used to play asteroids, and my goal was to flip the score from 999, I think it was 999,000 or whatever, and flip the score. And that would take hours. And there was no pause, there was nothing like that. There was no saving. You just sat in front of the TV with your little joy. I actually still have a 2600. But that was my first love of tech, my first love of video games, type thing. And as far as like my first like experience, like because right now, as you guys probably know, I really like to get into like the smartphone thing. And my first smartphone was the 3GS. Um, that I just thought was amazing. I was just like, oh my God, you can do all this stuff on a screen. You can. interact with the screen and da 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 da. So, but yeah, um, the 2600, and then I got a few years later after that Commodore 64, and tooling around on that. So those were the early days of Ace.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's kind of my early memory too. Funny enough, even though I'm only 32, and but I have like my oldest brother just turned a few days ago, just turned 47, so there's a good age difference. So I remember that too.
right.
The good old and and we had games that were never released. My uncle worked for NASA and worked with a guy who worked for Atari in game development, and so we had games that were never released. And my parents, like, they tossed the games and never gave any of the kids a chance to, like, hey, do you want to take the systems and the games out of, so we are not storing these. And I just remember being like utterly sad when they said they just put them by the garbage. Like, can you imagine? Like, millions of dollars worth of games
Let me
just
see what's.
tossed.
Yeah.
Just tossed. Like, literally, some of these games I know were like $30,000 if they
Do
even
you
worked.
do you remember that controversy? Because I remember, because I owned the game. Actually, matter of fact, I think I still have it. E.T. When they came out with the game E.T., it was so horrible that nobody bought it, and they actually buried a bunch of them out in the desert in California because they had to get rid of them and they couldn't sell them and they didn't know what to do with them, so they buried them in the desert. And it's true because they went back and dug them up and found all these ET Atari cartridges. Bizarre.
There was
It's one of
that,
those
and
Atari.
there
Yeah.
was that, and there was a collector's edition gold box. Um,
Mm.
um, was it a what was the game? That because there was actually a guy in Ohio that showed up with one, and they thought that they were being punked because they dug through all these games in the top of this bag, and this kid had gone to like a garage sale and picked up a bag with all these games. There's like 150 games in there, and they dug through all of them. And these games in the top weren't really worth anything because they were super common games, or they
Mm.
were open box, or they weren't in very good condition, and so there were things, and they get all the way to the bottom and they grab this game and they had to test to see if it was fake, because what people would do is they buy a fake copy of it from like Japan and they'd weight it so that people would think it was the real. So they pop the thing open carefully, check the cartridge, make sure it's not weighted, and it was real, and it was real metal, and he had like the original box and everything. And I think they ended up, if I remember correctly, they ended up giving him like 30,000 in cash for it,
Oh
and
wow.
they held on to it for a bit, and I think they ended up selling it for over like 100,000. So,
Dang.
and he had
Nice.
gone to another place that had offered him like 13,000. So he's like, oh, I guess I'm glad that I had held, and he had
Yeah.
forgotten about it, and that was like years before he had forgotten about it. He was just digging through stuff, and he just had thrown everything in a box, and so literally in a couple of years, it had more than doubled in value, and then they waited a few years, and that tripled. And I can't imagine like some of the collections that people just have sitting in there. So do you think that there'll be a day where like your iPhone 3GS, or like I have an iPhone 4 even, that's been rebacked, there'll be a day where like those will be worth something like that, even
I'll
though
be
they've
honest
been
with
used?
you. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because there are. I mean, I haven't even looked. I don't know because with eBay nowadays, I mean, eBay's been out for forever and a day. So um, I just think that with the like the amount of 3GSs that are probably still out there, whether they work or not, um, as far as certain amounts of tech. I mean, unless it's in the box, in the box, I don't really know if even in the future, they'll be worth too much. Um, but you never know, So, um, but I don't. There's so many out there in the wild. But then again, a couple of decades down the road, there may not be so many, and
Yeah, I actually.
nostalgia. But I don't know if someone came up and offered me an obscene amount of money for it, I'm gonna here you go, write me a check. But but yeah,
The funny thing about that too is like you could buy one in box and somebody literally could have opened the box, put like a box of soap in there and sealed it back shut because people know what they're
oh
doing with
yeah,
like irons and stuff and even
yeah,
like there was this thing that went, I don't remember if you remember last year, that went around where people, they were showing where like the resellers could get the tabs that went on the back of the iPhone boxes to reseal
oh,
shut because some, and they, those were originally for carriers and stuff because some of the carriers, what they do is they open the box, they put the SIM card in, and they close them shut, and then they reseal them, and they
yeah,
do that so nobody can take it out, and it's a reseal thing, but it looks just like the original. But apparently somebody got their hands on a bunch of them, so there was some discussion of needing to redo that or figure out. So what do you do? Like, do you go to like an airport and go through TSA and be like, "Oh, yep, it's there," or like you can't just buy a
right,
scanner. So it's one of those
yeah,
situations of, I guess, until you know it's, and you can't just open it because now you've ruined the value like
right.
substantially. So
Well,
I
I
guess
don't
you
know if
just
you
have to
guys
hope.
remember. I don't know if you guys remember Blockbuster. I used to work for Blockbuster back in the, I don't know, early 90s, mid 90s. And whenever we would, DVDs or VHS tapes, we would take and if they weren't, when the blockbusters came out, you had, a ton of them and then, rent them out. But then, when the rental sales would start to decrease, we would sell them. So all you would do is, take the DVD and in the shell casing, and we had plastic that we would wrap it up in a little heat gun, and it looked like it was brand new. Not that we were selling it as brand new, we were, saying it was used and this and that, but you know, with a heat gun and some plastic, you can reseal just about anything and make it look like brand new.
What? Okay, so my next thing. What is your favorite piece, or I guess you can pick a couple if you need to, pieces of tech that you use like on the daily?
Oh, I'll pick two. That would be my left bud and my right bud of my AirPod Pros 2. My AirPod, I can't live without. I've done the AirPod Pros, since the launch. I can't go anywhere without them. They are always, that little pocket, your little watch pocket that you have for your jeans. Always, always in my pocket. I can't go anywhere without my AirPods. um, Another piece of tech. I guess I had to have my phone so I can listen to my AirPods, but yeah, AirPods are just ever since they first came out. Uh, you know, uh, when they first came out, they looked weird. You're like, what are these Q-tips hanging out people's ears? But just the convenience. The convenience of it. You just pop them in and they connect to your phone. Although, Apple's, like I like to say, with the ecosystem, Apple's great. Your AirDrop, and it's like, none of the time it works all the time. But yeah, the AirPods I cannot live without. I'm always listening to a podcast or listening to music. Um, my wife is the same way. She's worse than I am. Although she can't. We tried the, what was it, the third generation of AirPods when they did the redesign. She tried those. She didn't like them. She doesn't like in ear, and the first gens. That's that's it. That's her. We hope we hope that Apple never stops, manufacturing that first style because that fits her ear perfectly. She sleeps with them. She always has one in her ear. She's worse than I am. But but yeah, the AirPods. That's the AirPods and my phone. I mean, laptop. You know, as far as creating, I've got to have my iPad. But to live without, like personally, got to have my phone and my AirPods. Yeah, I just can't seem to live without those things. So,
I've
it,
noticed as of late with my AirPods Max that the switching, like the auto switching stuff, which I've turned off. I actually had turned off with my old iPhone, but when I got my new one, I forgot to do that. I've actually noticed that it
mm,
seems to have improved. Like sometimes
yeah,
it asks and be like, "Oh, we notice it's nearby. Do you want to connect?" Other times it just does it. And even like with my PC, I noticed. And there's
right.
something with must be the one of the recent firmwares for the AirPods. It's like, oh, even if it's not an Apple device, whatever your last device that you were connected to, if it's not a phone or whatever, if it's switched to your phone, it's just gonna pair. And it's cool to see that stuff. Oh, so you got the new AirPods then?
Oh yeah, had to. Yeah, well, for one, um, as we may or may not know, the first gen AirPod Pros, they sounded good, but they had their issues. Um, there was, times that there was crackling and um, I had the worst time. I went through three actual pairs of earbuds. Luckily, you get Apple Care. When it comes to audio anything, I always get the protection plan because I play my stuff too loud and I know I shouldn't, but I do. But I had to return them like three different times, and they took care of it each time, no problem. Apple customer service, going into the store, what have you. They're all about helping you out and getting it taken care of. Um, but my case, you never really get the case replaced. So, the battery life wasn't that great in the case. My connectivity was always, in the later, year, because I think it was like was it 3 years between the pros and the pro twos? That last year, the connectivity, it was spotty. I would have to reconnect um, my AirPods all the time. Um, but I just, the noise cancellation, I mean, the AirPod Pros too, the noise, the noise cancellation is, I don't travel, I don't get on the planes and, do all that stuff and this and that. But when I mow my lawn, I can definitely tell that these AirPod Pro 2s are significantly better when it comes to noise cancellation. And as far as like the um, transparency was always good. Um, they seem to be a little bit, maybe a little bit better, but it was always good to begin with. I haven't done any of the, you know, noisy street things to see, if that adaptive transparency works or not. But they sound cleaner. The That's probably one. If you're in the Apple ecosystem and you're an AirPod Pro user and you were kind of thinking about upgrading to the twos, I highly recommend it. It sounds better, it's fuller, and the noise canceling is great. Um, two times better, possibly. I don't really know how to measure that, but it's a lot better, when it comes to the noise canceling. And it's funny because I know that everybody's all like, "Oh, you can control the volume, with the stems." I don't do that. I guess I'm in the habit of reaching in my pocket and, turning the volume up and down or reaching to my watch and doing that. So I don't have that muscle memory to, mess with it here. But yeah, I love these AirPod Pro 2s.
I saw a video the other day and somebody was demoing it, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And as El Jefe would say, "Sir," like they're like stroking the earbud. And I was like, "What is going on?"
Yeah.
Like, because
Yeah, I haven't
it
really
is a
messed
little
with.
weird because of the like it's
Yeah, it's like you got to grab the back. You just got to put your thumb to the back, and I've used them, and it works great. The times that I have used them, it's not janky or anything like that. It does but you just have to get used to putting your thumb to the back of the stem and just lightly, just up or down. But I don't know. Apple has trained me to reach for my phone or reach for my watch. So
at
I,
least they
I
didn't
just
try
I
to put
just
a crown on it. That would have been funny, like they have
that would have
on
been
the AirPods
hilarious.
Max, just like
Oh, you have a crown on there? That would be funny.
I yeah, that's one. There is one thing I'm unfortunately dealing with and my AirPods Max are out of warranty, but I'm unfortunately dealing with the issue where one of the firmware actually has made the active noise cancellation not quite as strong as what it was before. It's still good, but voices
Oh,
are coming through a little bit more than I would like. And so hopefully there'll be an update with that. There should be, especially with
yeah,
the new versions of iOS coming out, because I guarantee that then they'll just push they almost always do then push new firmware for the AirPods not too long afterwards, and because the new features and stuff like that that they need to integrate with, and app developers will come in and be like, oh, we're having problems, so you need to push an update, and it's not just like Bluetooth on your phone, it's the headphones. But apart from
right.
that, I love them. I get a little hot headed, but
Yeah.
that's about it. That's the only thing. Sometimes I wish I had the earbuds too, because it would be nice to have that same kind of experience, but over the ear kind of gets a little can get a little warm, get a little heavy,
Love
a little awkward. So
Texas. But I'm just like, I mean, I know the price has gone down, but man, I don't know what they are now, but I know that they retail for 550 and I'm just not it's like my AirPod Pros, I'm good with even for earbuds, $250 is a little on the expensive side for earbuds, but and that's how I kind of feel about over ear. 550 is a little expensive, but I know that if I was to make that leap and pay $550, they would have me hook, line, and sinker. So anytime that I would need to replace my over ears, I'd have to get AirPods Max, and I'd have to, just like with the pros, when they announced it, I already planned. I was like, hey, telling my wife, hey, honey, $250, I'm doing it. Even though it's Apple tax, but it's an all around, excellent experience, and that's what Apple tries to do, for everyone, try to give that all around, you know, good experience. And um, so, yeah, I think that's why I'm staying away from the AirPods Max, even though, you know, they're great and everybody loves them. I just, I just know if I do that, because I have a pair of the what are they? The Soundcore Q35, I think. And for the price on those, when they came out, I can't remember if they were 150 or 130. When they first came out, there were some issues, but they did some software updates and they work great. And and I think now they're under $100 or something like that. Great over ear, headphones. And they got some issues. The transparency's not that great. The noise cancellation, you feel like you're more like in a tin can than anything. But the sound quality and everything like that for over ear, I dig it. I'm no audiophile or anything like El Jefe, the man, that guy. Love that guy. But it's just I know if I was to do that AirPods, Max, I couldn't turn back, and I don't know. Just like with the Ultra, the Apple Watch Ultra, what, $800? Man, I had a hard time paying what, $300 or $400 for this Series 4 at the time. I was just like, it's a watch. I'm not a
But
watch connoisseur,
the,
but when it comes time to get a new watch, I'm going to be getting another Apple Watch. Don't know if it's going to be an Ultra or, whatever. But that's the thing. If I get the Ultra, the next time I get a watch, I'm going to have the Ultra because I'm going to want all the bells and all the whistles. So that's kind of how I know myself. I don't, you know, I try to somewhat be conscientious because I know even if I pay for it now, I'm definitely going to be paying for it again later. So
with,
I don't know if that
yeah,
made sense.
with what I'm seeing with the Ultra, I'm like, it's not worth it to me. I have my Series 7 and let's see, I'm at 65%. I took it off the charger at 11:24 last night. So 21 hours ago.
See,
Like I don't know how I do it. Whatever the updates that they've done recently, I can get
right,
2 to 3. I'm getting two or two, the 3 days on my Series 7. And I'm seeing people getting that on the Ultra or less. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm glad I didn't even try to like look at that thing. I mean, I get it's got LTE and like most people are probably running always on display and it would be different. And I tested this and I was at 3 days and still had like 20% left with the low power mode that they have. So I
right,
could have gone, probably I would get an extra day, doing that out of it. So I'd probably get a week with the Ultra. But,
man, I'm
maybe
telling
in a
you,
couple generations and, maybe they offer like a step down version of it. Because
right.
I could see
They could do an Ultra SE or something like that. Yeah,
I could see like a maybe a series 9 and then and have like the two sizes for that and then have like two sizes for your ultra and so
right,
because that's a huge price difference so they could there's still that gap in between where they could for like a couple $100 less offer a smaller version of the ultra maybe um maybe like not as many of the GPS antenna, like some of the features they could strip down a little bit. So you still get the battery life, you still get most of the features, but it's not for like you're not going to be stuck off too far away, but you still would have good
right.
GPS connection. And
Yeah,
although I don't know, the battery seems to be pretty solid. I've seen from people that are especially I don't on the watch, I don't get the point of an always on display because like the thing when I raise my arm and look at it, it shows it. So like when I
yeah,
bring it down, I guess to like if you're biking a lot, I see that because then it doesn't shut off.
right.
Um I do wish that they had a toggle in like the in like your quick settings that you could just toggle always on display on and off really quick instead of having to go into
Right.
your settings and some of that. But do you have a piece of tech that you regret buying?
Piece of tech that okay, it wasn't it I didn't buy it, but it was a gift from my wife for
Oh,
Christmas. But so essentially we bought it, or whatever. And it was something that I wanted because um and I just basically told her I was like, this is what I want for Christmas. And they weren't and I don't know if I wasn't doing it right or something. I tried all the different ear tips and the ear wings, but oh, I don't know what I did with them. The um, the Soundcore Liberty 3 Pros, when those came out, I mean, everybody was raving about those, and they sounded good and everything like that. Um, but yeah, I never used them. I went back and and I was using the main drive in my Pixel and everything like that, and I just couldn't get the fit right, and and they came with all kinds of, ear tips. There was like, six different ear tips and six different wing. That was probably my coming to my mind current tech regret, I guess. It just
Yeah,
didn't work out as well as with others, which happens. It's all preference. It's all, nobody's ears are the same. So, but yeah, those were the regret.
I got those when they had the deal. They had a deal on them, and so I got them. It was like through Best Buy, and it was 100. It was $99.
Mm,
And so I grabbed them right up. It was a short amount of time. They had them through Best Buy and they had them through Amazon, and I got them through Best Buy. And um, the funny thing is, I was gonna skip them because I didn't have like yeah, it was only $99, but I didn't have that money right then. But then I looked and they had them under the four payment thing. So I was like, I know it seemed
yeah,
cheesy to do that for $100, but considering the normal price on them, and
right,
that it was like a 1 day only thing. I was like, I'll take that. And then I just paid
right,
them all
right.
off like the next week. But yeah, I don't know. Like that's one of those things though that I feel like a lot of the experience is the integration with how things work, and that even like Google's starting to focus on that now, and that's one of the things that I noticed. Um, have you noticed? Speaking on that, I will ask you if you've noticed and kind of your thoughts on how Apple for the longest time has really been about like the iPhone was created, and then after that, when the iPad came out, and then of course, MacBook started to integrate stuff, and you had the Apple Watch and the AirPods, and you have all these things that essentially a lot of the foundation requires an iPhone. Like, iMessage doesn't work without an iPhone in the sense of like you can do regular iMessage, but you can't send SMS messages just by having iMessage on like your iPad or your Apple Watch. You still have to have
Right.
the central foundation. And Samsung and Google and other OEMs were all like, "Oh, we're open about that." Have you have you noticed in the last couple of years that all companies are kind of clamping down their systems as far as like their watch works the best with their hardware and sometimes only
Right.
works really with their and like the same thing with
Right.
earbuds, like there's features that if you don't have their device, yeah, you can use it, but there's um certain oh, what are they called, like
Features or yeah,
features or like quality levels or like the codecs that require you to have there. So
right.
how do you feel about that? Like, are you okay with that, or do you feel like it would be nice if there was still a more open option?
Well, I mean, I understand why companies are doing this. They're seeing, 'cause, Apple started this trend of, like with their Apple Watch, they're like, okay, this is only going to work with our product, you know. Um, the your AirPods, they're going to work with other products, but you're not going to get this seamless integration into our ecosystem and all the spatial audio features or this, that, and the other. Um, would I like there to be more open integration with other? But I understand because at the end of the day, I mean, as much as we, as techies want certain things, we want to be able to have the freedom to, buy something from Apple and it be working on Samsung. That's not totally feasible as far as making money because like Apple, Samsung, Google, they're not charity organizations. They are a corporation. They're in it for the bottom line. They're in it to make their shareholders money, and the best way to do that is to close the ecosystem to where like Apple, they have it totally shut down for, not totally shut down, but for the most part locked down to where, if you like all these features, you got to stay with us. Google's starting to, you know, see that, if we integrate, you're still going to be able to use your Pixel Buds here, but, if you integrate it, with the watch, you're going to be able to do this, and you're going to be able to do that. So that, keeps them coming back, you know, to that ecosystem. And I think Apple just learned early, or maybe not learned early, or just, Tim Cook, the genius that he is just like, why don't we just lock it down to where it's just us and they'll just have to come back to us, you know? Other companies are starting, I feel, to hop onto that train. And in all honesty, and I'm fine with that. I get it. It's a company. They're trying to make money, and they're trying to make money for their shareholders. So, is it always customer friendly? Maybe not. But you know, it's the other line. It's a money. They're just trying to make that paper like everybody else. You know what I'm saying? So that's my 2 cents on it.
It's a very interesting approach too because I was thinking about this today and I was like, I'm gonna ask Ace and see what he thinks because I was thinking about how like and it sounds like you're very like my thought like in line with my thought on it of the idea of Apple kind of started off closed and they've started to open up. Like they have APIs that are available, right? And like
Right.
for like their Find My and I think Bose and a couple other companies have integrated into their headphones and stuff like that. And even clothing companies could integrate, trackers in there if they wanted and
Hmm.
even like televisions where we see where there's AirPlay or like the Apple TV app. I mean, I can wirelessly connect my computer up to my $250 TCL TV if I wanted.
Right,
It's
right.
amazing. Like we're starting to see the expansion, and then with the
And also
announcement
too, and you
of
got to remember
Matter,
too, it's like
and
Apple's like, okay, we can do this if you want to AirPlay on your product, and or if you want to sell lightning cables and all this stuff, but they have to have a certain certification, so you know you got to
oh
pay
yeah,
us, so it's all about the money at the end, but
and like the weird thing that I thought was kind of funny in a way was Apple announces Matter integration, and then with the iOS 16 updates, well, 16.1 kind of pushed it, and talking about working with Google and Samsung and other companies. And then the thing that made me laugh today was, and so yesterday was seeing Google kind of be like, "Oh, we've got all this new hardware, and it only works kind of with our own stuff. Like our cameras only work in our own app now, and it works really well with our own stuff. But there's still some. That's the one thing that bothers me. So I got these cameras, and they're certified to work with Amazon's. I'm not gonna say there, because I don't want to trigger any, and
right,
Google's, and
the A
then
word,
HomeKit and
right?
HomeKit, but they really only work with HomeKit and Google's Assistant as far as like I can go into the app and say like show me Xander's room and it'll show me my son's room or show me the living room and it'll show and I can do that when I'm away from home too. But like I tried it on my Pixel, I tried it on my Samsung, I tried it on my iPhone. It doesn't matter if it's on an Android device or my iPhone. If I go into that Google app and I say show me, it pops up a thing and it's like it says I don't know what you're looking for, and then if I hit the actual camera in the Google Home app, it just pops up a thing to link me to the third party, the Eufy app, because they're Eufy brand. So there isn't really a full on integration like other, like Apple. If it says HomeKit, it means it's going to show up like on your Apple TV, on your Apple Watch, on your iPad, on your iPhone, on your MacBook. whatever it is. And so that threw me off when I was like, wait a minute, so it means I have to have like a Google Hub, or I have to have a Chromecast and it has to be like a certain one and set up a certain way, and I have to phrase it like show me living room on like my
Right.
living room TV Chromecast, so I have to like remember what they're all called. And then if I'm
You got to
gone from
remember the
home,
little catchphrases to activate whatever it is you want. Yeah, no,
and if I'm gone
exactly.
from home, I don't get it at all. And I didn't realize that until one day, and I had actually switched um before I upgraded my 13 Pro and got the 14 Pro Max. I had actually taken, I wasn't using my iPhone or my Apple Watch for like a few weeks. I was just using all my, I did it for a couple of months with all my Samsung stuff. But we were over at a friend's house, and I'm like, I'm gonna check my stuff because I got a package. I couldn't check the
Mhm.
cameras, and I was like, oh, that's a
Really?
problem. So I had to like go install the Eufy app, and then fortunately I had set it up right so that I could do it later, and it didn't require me to be at home. I just had to put in my two-factor authentication stuff.
Right.
Because if you set it up just so, it requires you to be at home the first time when you install the app and sign in, and then you can give it permission to like access remotely. So with
Oh,
Google
wow.
stuff, I'm hoping what this means is that that changes. I'm hoping that that means like, okay, now Google's announcing first party. That means if as if I can search for their brand and add it to my Google Home app, that I can just view it from that anywhere.
Right.
Because I would really like to be able to grab my Pixel and like bring down the shade and hit the little icon next to the camera and have it pop up and show me, and not have to like and go to like the Eufy app, or like T what is it, TP Link has their smart outlets that I thought about getting, and then there's
Right.
light bulbs from different brand. I have Philips Hue light bulbs like that all show up in my home stuff. I would
Right.
I would like to have that integration, but realistically, I have to use HomeKit for that right now.
Mm.
Because it's the only one that's recognizing all my stuff and allows me to access it, see it, control it, do the cool stuff. And when I go into Google and it shows it, but then it's like, oh, but you need to access it on your hub or whatever.
Right.
The and the thing that concerns me um, with tech is when they link too much to requiring like extra stuff beyond one piece of tech. Like for example, I could do that all with an iPhone, but like if
Hmm.
Apple is like, oh, but you have to have an Apple TV to cast it to, or you have to have a Mac as well, people would throw a fit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what bothers me a little bit because like unfortunately, if you talk to people, Google Pixel, what is that? Or like people don't know that they have a Pixel, or know that they have earbuds, or know some people don't even know like Nest or Hub, or like or what's the other, because there's like three different segments of their home stuff.
Right.
um and then if you have the older hardware and then they have the new mesh system, people don't even know that this exists. So then when they kind of had their primary market and then they try to expand off from that name, I feel like that's going to be a struggle, and be curious to see how that works. um
Yeah. I know, like with my home setup, I don't even none of it's I don't have any of the Apple HomeKit stuff. Mine's all done through Amazon, and that just it started with a light kit that connected to my Echo Dot, and just kind of expanded from there. And I, I I've got a couple of Hue lights. I've got some. Oh God, I don't even remember the name. Prime Day comes up, and you buy all kinds of neat stuff. It's what is it called? CYNC. It's a smart bulb that, because we have these like big floodlight like in our living room that go up in the ceiling, and you just screwed them in and they connected. And then we got the Blink security camera, and it had that was the whole Blink wireless security camera thing that we set up. That was way easier than I anticipated. it just, runs through the app and goes through, good old what's her name, and it works, just as long, constantly get notifications, if someone hits that camera, even, home or away, and I can view it and talk to them and, all this kind of stuff. So I didn't really get into the home kit. And I think what it was at the time with all the home kit stuff, was the price. It was just like, it just seemed a little bit more expensive to go Apple, even though I'm already in that ecosystem. Um, it just seemed less expensive to go the Amazon way. And that's just kind of, where I built it off of there. Kit, can run off of apps that I can have on my phone or I can have on my iPad or I can have on my computer. um, I don't run into that ecosystem lock, since they still talk with one another. So, um, but there are times that, I do get upset when I can't just be, have my phone and be able to just mirror or shoot whatever video or whatever I want to watch on another television or something like that. But because it doesn't offer that software, it doesn't mirror, it doesn't have the Apple thing. So yeah, it can be definitely frustrating at times because you don't not everything is blended, as much as we would like it, but you know that's how they get you to spend your money.
Yeah, the whole like home automation thing is interesting to me because like I discovered, for example, that I could just set up a Siri shortcut and um oh, be
No, you
quiet.
said the name. You said the magic word.
I didn't even say the hey
You
before it
didn't
though.
say the
That's the
hey part.
funny.
No, doesn't
My
matter.
phone was like, "Oh, you said my name."
They're all listening
But
constantly.
what I was gonna say is I set up some Siri shortcuts, and what I did is I set them up to queue into the Google Assistant app,
Hmm.
and then so with with Siri shortcuts you can have it open the app, and then you can have it like as if you said a phrase to the Google Assistant.
Right.
And so my Xbox, Xbox you can control with Google Assistant. You can say like, you know, hey noodle, turn on Xbox and
Right.
it will do it. And then my Xbox was set up to my TV and it turns on the TV and the TV goes to the correct input because that's the way I have my TV set up. So what was
Yeah.
funny was I wanted to know like could I do that with Siri? And when I think it was iOS 15 when they did the whole where Siri shortcuts work across like your Mac and they even work with
Right.
like your home pods and all that stuff now. So you just
Hmm.
set it up on iPhone and somehow it worked. I don't know how it's working on the home pod. It must be that it like remote. I think what it does is it actually remotely sends a signal and cues it through your phone, even though it's not because my HomePod obviously doesn't have Google Assistant on it. So how would it trigger, the assistant to do it? And it just does it in like the
Right.
background. It doesn't even have to like open the app and actually do it. So what was really funny is I could just say like I and then I set up other stuff and all I had to do was say to Siri like I could say to Siri to like turn up the volume on my TV and then turn it up and then turn it down, even though that there's not like that direct integration, be- because of the whole everything through the TV. And I think that's one of the things that I don't know. I just the idea of yeah, Apple locks things and Siri is kind of eh. But the fact that you do have that like open expandability outside of it with Siri shortcuts and the fact that you
Hmm.
can install Google Assistant on your iPhone for the times that you need it, but you can't do the opposite, which some people will say, well, obviously that's on Apple. You can't install Siri on your Android device. So if there are certain things that Siri does really well that you would prefer, like for me, um, my home integration is flawless with Siri. I've had difficulty with Google Assistant triggering stuff or not working, or like if I have my phone and I have multiple Android devices and I also have a Google Hub and I'm in a small
Hmm.
apartment and Google Hub can hear me anywhere in the apartment, even if I'm practically whispering, which kind of creeps me out. Like it's pretty good,
Right.
but they'll all just ignore each other because they're not sure which one will pick up. And that was one of the things I've heard that Amazon's is really good at not necessarily ignoring. Like if you give a queue and you have multiple, that they're pretty good with that as well.
Yeah, I have one. I have one. Because one last Prime Day, they had this special where you could, you got the security cameras, and it included like one of their little screen Echo Dot screens, and we already had an Echo Dot, and so I got the screen one set up in the living room, and then I have another one back in the pantry kitchen area, and they've never. Um, you know, I could be in the kitchen, and when I ask a question, it knows, it's that one, even though the one in the living room is still within total earshot. Um, yeah, they've never had an issue with, um, you know, wanting to talk over one another or not understanding which one I'm talking to or what have you. As a matter of fact, my wife says I have an unhealthy relationship with Miss A. um, because because I have it set up to where it's where you can ask it a question and then it'll answer, or you can tell it to do something, and then it'll listen back in case you have like a follow-up question or something like that. So whenever I tell her to turn off the lights or to do whatever, I always tell her thank you, or I'll tell her good night. I don't know. I'm old. It's just I don't care if it's AI. It's still common courtesy to say thank you. So she's developing, cutesy little, like, good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite, type things, and little cutesy little things. And my wife just keeps eyeballing me, and I'm just like, honey, it's a computer, I swear. It's all that's going,
No,
this and that. But she just kind of looks at me and goes like, uh-huh, you've
no,
got an unhealthy relationship with our,
no,
Alexa stuff.
no her experience going on
No
there.
her experience, no.
Um,
Yeah.
I know I've actually noticed, um, and Google's started doing this too, but I initially noticed it with Apple's assistant. I won't say it because I might want to trigger stuff
Right,
again.
don't want to
Um,
tackle it.
that if I've been going back and forth and asking a lot of questions, and then I'm
Hmm.
like, and then I'll be like, okay, thank you, I'm done now. That
Hmm.
sometimes it'll respond with like, okay, no problem, but like with an attitude, like you've been using me, you just said thank you.
Right.
Like I don't know, like there's a little bit of an attitude with some of the, and I've noticed that like, and the really funny
Oh.
one is my favorite thing is to ask it to tell you a joke, and
Hmm.
depending on or like the asking the different ones, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if woodchuck could chuck wood, and you get different
Right.
responses. Some of them quite literally give you an answer. Other ones are like I asked Google Assistant that today, and it was like, well, an adult male woodchuck would have chuck approximately 35. And I was like, but it was quite a literal and funny answer, like at the same time.
Yeah. It can get pretty comical. And the scary thing is that with all this, voice recognition and, the listening that devices do, um, it kind of gets, it kind of, I don't know. Uh, a lot of people are they, and I understand, the right to privacy and all this kind of stuff, which is, that's the age-old question. That's why Siri isn't as good as Google, because, the privacy as far as Google is more open than the lockdown that Apple, because they're very big on your privacy, which is why, they, the Siri algorithm, everybody's got, they got their whole privacy thing happening, so they're not getting the AI that Google is. But an example, we were out at my father-in-law's not too long ago, and my wife and him were talking about something, just talking. She didn't Google it on her phone. She didn't, it was some product, some water bottle or something like that. I can't quite recall. She didn't Google it. They just talked about it. And on the way home, she's going through Facebook or, doing whatever her thing, Instagram or whatever, and she sees an ad for that specific water bottle thing that they were just talking about. And nobody Googled it. They were just talking about it, and boom, there it is. And it's just like, that's just how it is. Do I mind it so much? Eh, I don't know. Am I ready for just to, say something and then it just ends up in my cart? Eh, maybe. I've always been a big fan as far as tech goes. It's like I want I want everything on my phone. I want my driver's license. I want my credit cards. I want it all. I don't want to carry a wallet anymore. I just want to carry one thing. And I'm at that point pretty much right now. I got my driver's license or well, I just got the new Real ID thing, and I have to add it to my phone, but you can add it to your phone. You got your credit cards, you got everything. But then again, you open up yourself to which we've all pretty much given away our privacy, to a certain degree. But I'm at that age. I don't do anything but sit at home and make YouTube videos and work. What do I care? I'm not doing anything illegal or whatnot. But as an an American, you have freedoms, and then you also have the freedom of not choosing not to have your privacy you know displayed out there or given to artificial intelligence. So there's like this whole other fine line. I'm not exactly sure where I was going with that, but I was just rambling.
It's the whole how far do we let social engineering go?
Exactly,
And
exactly.
the crazy thing to me is, so when I was looking at getting the cameras when we moved, I
Mhm.
was looking, of course, at HomeKit support just because I was like, I know it'll be easier for my wife because I can set it up with all the apps on my end and then just have her be part of the home. And so on her iPhone, all she has to do is go into the home app or ask Siri to show it, and she doesn't have to know anything else. She doesn't have to like install the Eufy app or install the Google
Right,
Home app or any of this stuff. I can set it up on my device and have all the apps for if there's updates and control stuff, and she can just and then one of the things that's neat that they did is if you have if you have any of the like 200 gig or higher iCloud Apple plan, you
hmm,
get you get cloud access, and it doesn't count against it, but you get it for free, and they'll store like the last 30 days if you set it up that way if you want. It's one of
oh,
the deals that they made. Apple kind of announced it, and I think if you had the lower plan, it's like two devices. But then I
hmm.
have the 2 terabyte one, so it's as many as I wanted on there. But
Yeah,
because
see, I've got the
there
two
is
terabyte
some,
cloud storage thing too. So
and one of the
um,
other things that's crazy is, so you know how like in your Photos app you have people and you can select faces and like tell it which and that
yeah,
will
who
get
it
better and
is,
better.
and yeah,
Well, these cameras, I could actually let it integrate with that, so it can tell me like, hey, um,
so and so's at the door.
So well, it could no, it could be like Krista's home. That's my wife's name. It could be like she's home,
Oh,
and let me know, or like Xander's home, and you can do it with animals too, or recognize pets. You can turn all
wow.
that stuff on, so it can be like, hey, but the thing is, the way it's integrating that is because, and it's local. So like
Hmm.
Anchor isn't getting any of that. That's through Apple, and it's because you've
Right,
integrated it into your, and when you go to iCloud, all that same stuff is in like your iCloud album, right? It's up on there. So it's what they have there, but it's not like outside your iCloud account or like any outside your devices. And it's kind of crazy to me. Like I don't have that set up only because there
right.
were some limitations when you integrated that. Because these are 1440p, which that's the only thing is they only show at that if I'm using the Eufy app. If I'm using HomeKit and it must be Apple's limitation, then they're 1080p. And of course, I have
Mm,
to go into the Eufy app to move them because these can move like 360 and pan and tilt. I have to
right,
use the Eufy app for that because Apple doesn't have the controls in there and they limit the resolution a bit. But
right,
like I just have mine basically locked so it's showing I can see my, most of my apartment from one here and then the other one I have in my son's room so if I, at night I can see him, make sure he's okay, talk to him through it and all
right.
that stuff. It has night vision and all that. It's just crazy how far this stuff has gone. But it's like you said,
It's
it's
nuts.
like what point do you limit it and say like that's enough? But it's up to you. And my thing is, I agree with you. And that's like I'm never gonna be applying. Well, I'm never gonna be applying for like a government job where they have to like erase my identity, and it's gonna be really hard because I've integrated with all this stuff, right? I'm not ever planning on
Right.
like the CIA swooping in here and being like, Michael, we want you to work for us.
Mhm.
They would have done that probably long ago if they were gonna do it at this point. I'm
Right. And it's like
because
we don't have anything to hide, but the flip side of that is, there's the whole, privacy thing, you don't some people don't want to just, give that away, but
I
I don't
I
know.
laughed today when somebody put up a picture of where Google's like if you get the Pixel 7 or Pixel 7 Pro, you get their VPN. And somebody was like, that's like inviting somebody over to change your locks and giving them the key. Because they were joking about,
Right.
how Google has access to stuff and you're going to give them stuff that's supposed to protect it and they're the ones that are operating. I was like, kind of, but a VPN, but like their whole thing was anonymizing it and all that. But that reminded me, it very much reminded me of the whole relay, Apple's thing that they
Right.
announced with it, but a little bit different because it's a full on like VPN and stuff. But I'll be curious to see, like, I kind of want to try it, even though, like, because you can pay for it, of course. So I kind of want to try it for a month paid because I don't have the newer device to be able to do that. But I kind of want to try it and just see, like, do they have the same stuff for like if you go into Netflix, you can, route it to whatever and like
Right.
um I mean I have T-Mobile Magenta Max, so it doesn't happen to me, but I kind of want to see like does it go as far as also bypassing the video resolutions? Because some VPNs, if you launch a VPN when you're on your mobile, then you can play 4K even if your carrier doesn't support it because they don't know what you're doing, so you can just pump it up as long as your speed support. So I'd be curious to know like are there some limiters on there um and like I really think when the tablet comes out that's going to be
Right.
an interesting thing too, and like the integration with the Pixel. But with that being said, um, Ace, thank you very much for joining me.
Oh,
Um,
thank you for having me, man. This
I
was a
will
blast.
say if you were to sum up your YouTube channel, how would you sum it up?
Well, it'd be like this. It's like my outro. If you like tech and tech reviews and the accessories that go along with your tech, that's me. If you had to
Cool
sum it up, I
stuff.
guess. Cool stuff.
I will say thank you to everybody in chat who came on through,
Yes,
rocked
thank you
through,
guys.
stuck with us through it. Um, I know that Ike started like 15 minutes ago, so anybody who doesn't know,
Oh,
anybody
snap.
who's new in my chat, go over to
Ike's Tech
actually
Talk.
real quick. I'll put it in my chat. I mean, most people in here, think pretty much everybody in here already knows, but I never make assumptions. Um,
Right.
copy and where did you go? Is that the right one? There we go. Make sure I put the right link in there.
There it is.
Thanks, everybody. And I will be here next week for episode 7 with Latrell Jennings, who I was supposed to have on a few weeks ago, but then with the whole like when you've scheduled people already past that and then I had to cancel, so it put him like way out because I have to put him after. He was really good about it. So
Yeah.
that
No, Latrell's a good cat. I dig that guy.
peace,
Yeah.
everybody. Ace, hang around
Peace
for a
and love,
second
y'all.
if you